Hi, my name is Brett Chell. This is the Cold Bore podcast and YouTube channel. We wanted to start a channel so that we can bring some information of what we're doing in the digital completion space out to the marketplace in a really easily consumable fashion. So Cold Bore Technology, we essentially have two products. One is acoustic monitoring, some acoustic software for ball drop frac. Our main product that we offer into the marketplace is called SmartPAD. So if you haven't heard of SmartPAD before, if you're a drilling guy and you know about RigSense, one of NOV's products, or Payson, so they are EDRs, electronic drilling recorders. They're a good analogy for what we do if you want to port it over to completions. We are squarely focused on digital completions. That's all we do. The SmartPAD is the only digital operating system in the world that does what it does. We are now working with many of the big wellhead providers, a lot of the super majors and medium-sized oil and gas companies here in North America. We're commonly referred to as a remote completions operating system. First one in the world. And we're quite often confused with software as a service companies, so SaaS companies. We have competitors, Calvin, we call them competitors because they're not in the same space, although they do have some similarities, which confuses people. So maybe I'll start with that today. So Calvin Corva, Well Data, companies like that, all great companies. Their primary business is software as a service, and they essentially offer a better way to view and consume data, taking frac or wireline data from location. They show analytics, really good analytics, and kind of an analytic platform to take that data. SmartPAD is a different approach and a different business altogether. So although we do that as well, we have analytics and visualizations that we produce. We are an operating system. What I mean by that is SmartPAD is the first remote operating system that actually produces its own data set and digitizes frac trees. So what I mean by that, there's basically two ways to look at a remote completions operating system. One is you just take the raw data back from the service companies, wireline, coil, frac, pump down, and then you visualize it. So that's what most of the market has done and the direction they went. So all of our competitors, that's essentially what they do. But the challenge there is that that approach doesn't do anything to fix the data. And the biggest problem in completions right now is that we have a data problem, all right? It's not that we have, that we can't visualize whatever data's out there. There's lots of companies that do that now. It's that the data that's coming in is being sent to us, the operator. I'm speaking from an operator's perspective. The data that's coming in is being sent to us via the service companies. And the operator has no control over how that data is gathered from those service companies. So there's a term in the industry, garbage in, garbage out. And when you don't have any control over how your data is collected, you're not sure what you're getting. And quite often you're getting not great data. And it's really an incomplete data set. So the big trouble with completions right now and is that the data that the operators are getting in whatever fashion is not accurate. That's the number one problem. So how do you solve that problem? If you're just going to take data, throw a Raspberry Pi or some connection device into your services, frac, wireline, or coil, and bring that data back, you're not going to change anything. You're still leaving it up to them to gather data however they gather it. In essence, you won't change that. They're always going to gather data however they want. So we can't necessarily change that, nor do we want to, but we can check that. And the way we do that is we give the power to the operator by having the operator gather their own data set to check against the services data sets. So that's essentially what we do with SmartPAD, is we generate a data set. It's a unique data set to Cold Bore. We're the only ones in the world that do it. And we have a patent on it. We have IP around it. We digitize the frac trees because the frac tree is the heart of the operation. And what I mean by digitized frac tree is usually 4 to 6 valve position sensors that go on all the valves, and then 4 to 6 pressure sensors in each one of the zones. And between those two base data sets, your valve position and your pressure, our algorithm can determine and record what operation is happening on what wellhead at any given time. So I'll give you an example. Right now, all the oil companies have a company man or woman recording the time series data manually in a notebook. So we started fracking at 10 o'clock. Then they put it into an email, and then they send it in Excel sheet or email. They send it in, and then it's put into OpenWell or WellView, right? That's the current process. And so that manual time series data you're not able to take that data set and compare it against what the service companies are telling you, because they're all sending in digital formatted data that's in different formats, and it's all fired in on the back end. The advantage of having the operations tracked by a digital frac tree are many. They've got safety, you can keep guys out of the hot zone, you're able to connect automated systems, but the main one that I want to speak about here is to create the time series data, right? So we take those base data sets, valve position and pressure, from the sensors on the frac tree, feed it to an algorithm. An algorithm determines the state of that frac tree all the time. So while A might be on frac, B's on wireline, then you're moving B to well swap, A moving to wireline. So that timeline is all tracked automatically. No longer do we have a need for the company man or woman to be writing down notes in their notebook for the time series data. It's all done automatically. And so when you do that, you end up with a 1 second accurate record of everything that happened on that pad via the frac tree, which is never wrong. It's always the source of the operation. So we end up recording every second of every operation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sequential order. Then we take and hardline in all the services on location via an edge device and bring in all their raw data, which we visualize in the cloud and on the edge as well. But we take all that raw data in and we drop every second for coil, wireline, pump down, frac here. And the next second, wireline, coil, pump down, frac. The next second, wireline, coil, pump down, frac. So all that's being done on the edge server in real time. What that means is we now have a format, right? So the challenge with completions is that, and I'll use another drilling analogy here. The challenge with completions in comparison to drilling, Pason and RigSense, is that when Pason and NOV came out with their EDRs in the 90s, stuff was just starting to be digitized, early 90s. And so they picked a format called WITS-ML. And everybody on the drilling side pretty much uses WITS-ML. Completions comes around maybe 15, 20 years ago, and everything's digitized already. So there's digital everything, and when they start to digitize a lot of the completions locations, the different companies, they all choose different formats and different systems and build in-house this and in-house that. And so on a frac location with all the different companies out there, there's no format for data collection. So it's very service-centric. So it's a service-centric approach. Frac worries about frac. Wireline worries about wireline. Coil worries about coil, right? Pump down, pump down. And then they all send it in to the operator in whatever format, and the operator's looking at all that data and checking it against their time series data, which was recorded manually by a human. Very inaccurate, very low resolution, and inconsistent. But they're trying to make sense of all this, right? What SmartPAD does is with those digital frac trees, we're tracking the time series data automatically. Then we're taking all the raw data from the services, putting it into those time slots, and we create a format. Now all the data, regardless of who is using what on location, what service company, could be Halliburton, could be Schlumberger, could be Baker, could be Liberty, could be anyone, could be any format. Doesn't matter. We aggregate at the edge, we translate, we take all that raw data, put it into the automatic time series data set that we have that's taken from the frac tree by our proprietary algorithm, and there's one clean stream that comes out. So what you get is, on our user interfaces for SmartPAD, on the edge, which is our displays for all the location, you can see coil, you can see wireline, you can see pump down, you can see frac, and you have a digital twin of all the frac trees with all the valve positions and all the pressures, everything moving, and it's all correlated, it's all amalgamated in one place. So we're tracking all the time series stuff in terms of NPT, we're tracking all the UTF down to the second. We're talking about high resolution 1 second operation tracking, then integrating all services on location, regardless of company or format, putting it all into one place, translating, and having one clean stream come out. That automatically goes into WellView or OpenWell, right? We now have all the data from every service company formatted into time series data. So we can push it directly into your database automatically. So we're eliminating the need for people to touch and retouch and generate and regenerate and re-enter and calculate. There's a massive relief in infrastructure in terms of people touching and moving data. There's a massive increase in data resolution because we're moving to 1 second data, and you're virtually eliminating the opportunity for errors. And not only eliminating errors, you're getting consistent data gathered the same way every time. And the most important thing here is, because we are generating the time series data from the frac tree, we can QC all the service data. So if they say we fracked from 10 to 10:30, nope. Valve opened at 9:58 and it closed at 10:37. So we had 6 minutes there that were actually unaccounted for. So we find that routinely on a block of operations, and there could be 50, 60, 70 blocks of operation a day or more. We'll find 5, 6 minutes, each one of them just in invisible lost time by running much higher resolution systems like this. So SmartPAD, essentially the EDR for the completions side of the world. We've been crying for, I'm a drilling guy, I was 20 years, I've been in the business, drilling guy in the field for 10 years, then doing technology development, both with on the drilling side and completions. And this just seemed like an obvious hole in the market 5 years ago, and it's never been more true now. We have to move to automation, we have to move to remote access, especially with this whole Corona thing going on. We have a system now that we're implementing for a lot of the large clients all over the US, Permian, Eagle Ford, Bakken, Marcellus, because it drives so much efficiency, and a lot of the side benefits come in our safety, centralized operating system for all services to communicate on, and the ability to connect automated systems. So I'm maybe going to touch on that real quick. So another important aspect of this is that we have digital frac trees, and we have automated frac equipment, and we have automation coming in everywhere, which is a good thing. But these are all individual service companies, and the frac trees don't necessarily communicate with the pumps, and the wireline doesn't necessarily communicate with pump down, and vice versa. So as part of our system, it's a byproduct, because we are the universal operating system that everyone plugs into and everybody can have an input and an output. We're connecting all these, right? So it's the first true universal visibility for everyone on location. We have chat functions built in, so everybody can communicate inside of the same operating system that all the data is being housed. It's all stored by timestamp, so all communications are there with your raw data. And what that does is we end up becoming an opportunity for, it's an operating system right now, but it could be a control system of control systems, if you will. So we have companies like FMC and Cameron and all these guys coming out with digital frac trees and digital accumulators, which will have digital interlocks so that cutting wireline is a thing of the past. We have the wireline connected to our centralized operating system. We know the depth, we know the speed. We have an interlock on the accumulator. We can connect the two. That's never, ever going to be cut again. No need for any hardware, no need for any extra systems, no need for a bunch of multi-vendor software. One operating system to solve it all. That's where we're going. So when you get companies like FMC and Cameron and all them that have digital frac trees and digital wellheads and everything's becoming automated, then you have companies on the frac side. I won't name all of the names because I'm not sure who's furthest ahead there, but with automated frac equipment, you can connect the two. But you need a centralized operating system. And it's important that that centralized operating system is tracking the operations so that you give context to all of these raw data sources, right? So if you don't have the operation tracked automatically and you're bringing in all these raw data sets, you're not giving the raw data any context so that humans can consume it, right? You following? So cold bore specifically, and we have IP around this, our algorithm tracks the operation via sensors on the digital frac trees. It creates that time series data, a log of when the very first person showed up on location to when they leave. Every second is tracked. That's the context with which we start plugging in all the raw data sets, and a byproduct is a lot of the automated systems that are coming now have access to connect to each other through this centralized operating system that is SmartPAD. So this is the next biggest revolution in completions, is moving to a centralized operating system and changing our perspective in fracking from a service-centric perspective, where every service watches out for itself, to an operator-centric perspective, where the operator has ultimate control over a centralized operating system, all the services connect, and everybody benefits simultaneously through the visibility, the collaborative nature, and the sharing of data, as well as the access points, both on location and remotely in the office buildings. Everyone's looking at the same data at the same time, communicating in the same place. No more GoToMeetings, no more WebExes. You just do the communicating inside of our system. So appreciate it. That's going to be, I think we'll wrap it up for the first episode here on Cold Bore's new YouTube channel. I hope everyone's having a good time hanging out in their house and finding productive ways to either find some new hobbies or find a new way to reach people. You know, it's a tough time for a lot of people, but there's always a lot of opportunity in any times like this. My grandpa always said, never waste a good recession. So, you know, we're kind of facing both. We got this world pandemic right now, as well as a oil and gas battle or war that's happening that's driving us into an economic recession. Could be a lot of stress, is a lot of stress for a lot of people, but I encourage you and I implore you to take the time to find ways to reach out, communicate, and start driving a conversation about how we're going to, you know, weather the storm for the next month or two, and then how we thrive after that. And that's what this podcast is going to be about. And we're going to continue to drive this conversation. So please join us. Hit subscribe so that we can keep doing what we're doing and get some support for this channel. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening tonight, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.